Hey everybody, Jake here, TrendSpider, to go over the weekend video update, going over the broad markets, Bitcoin, which I'm at this point just going to consider the broad markets, as well as a few individual names. Starting with the S&P 500 ETF SPY, you can see here that we are in a very defined ascending wedge here. Now, generally, if you want to go look up the statistics, an ascending wedge may be a little more biased towards the downside than the upside. But as always, any setup that you look at is going to be confirmed or denied by price action. So at this point, we moved right up to the ascending wedge resistance zone, and we'll see what happens going into next week. But one thing to keep an eye on the weekly chart is we are starting to kind of get towards this broadening wedge resistance zone above, and that goes all the way up to around 435 to 436, depending on how long that takes to potentially move up there. But all in all, just a huge melt up over the last month or so, and a lot of shorts getting squeezed here, and I think there's still a lot out there which may add more fuel to the fire moving forward. So all in all, the S&P 500 looking very strong, at least at this point. On the Qs, we have a few things to look at. One, we have this area from late April to early May where you had this previous resistance zone that acted almost as a perfect resistance zone once again on Thursday. And then you can see here today on Friday, we did almost close right above that area. So all in all, some really strong price action here. Remember, if you are using TrendSpider, use the gap snake, right? Not the gap snake, the gap detector. Gap snake is the old gap detection. The gap detector is going to show you all the open gaps. So we have gaps above. We have a gap that fills above around 348. We have another gap that fills above around 360. So, price likes to gravitate towards these gaps. And notice that we only have one below. We don't have multiple gaps below from this June low. So we do have more gaps above. They don't always fill, but they're always something to note in your analysis. So definitely some gaps above that could potentially fill if this strength continues. On the weekly chart, you can see here that we do kind of have this downward sloping channel. And you can see here we barely closed above that area. So all in all, just some really strong price action and potentially more price action to come. Remember, there's 4 green weeks in a row. Sometimes these types of moves are what really can drive the market higher, just sustained buying and or shorts getting squeezed. And so, I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. I think a lot of people are just looking at the macro conditions and thinking, there's no way the market can keep going up. The economy and the stock market are two very different things. And a lot of this is how much did the market price in, at the lows, and that's really what's driving price action at this point. So all in all, a little bit of a close above this channel resistance zone. So definitely something to keep in mind going into next week for potentially more upside. IWM, another one that's in a really crucial level here. So if you take the all-time high, I called it the swing high, might as well just call it the all-time high VWAP zone here. So remember, I like to use these zones. I like to capture some of this price action that happened above the VWAP. So this right here is your original VWAP. And then the zone, I think this is a 5% offset. So just right click, go to properties. This is a 2% offset, sorry. So I added another VWAP, essentially 2% above the original one, and that captures some of this price action here, captures some of that price action here, and you can see that we're right at this general zone once again going into next week. And this is definitely kind of make or break here. Will we take a little step back after just pretty much straight up since mid-July, or is this a sustained move to the upside? You can see here that if you use the same trend zone on SPY and the Qs, this is the area that we're trying to get through. Well, on IWM is clearly leading here. It's already broken out the last couple weeks. So this is definitely leading things. And, we could definitely continue up to this previous support zone, which acted as resistance back in support in December and then resistance back in March. That could be your target above around let's say 209 to around 212 if this move does sustain higher. So all in all, just really hard to be too bearish here, at least in the medium to longer term, meaning weeks to months. But things can change on a dime. there's no problem having a thesis and changing it based on what happens in the markets. That's the part of being a market participant. So all in all three of the main indices looking good. Let's go to BTC/USD, which is just Bitcoin. And you'll see here once again, kind of like the S&P 500. We've got this ascending wedge here. It's not as pronounced and not as near the apex as the S&P 500 is, but still, we're kind of coiling tighter and tighter. The lows and the highs are getting closer and closer together. That's what creates an ascending wedge. And like I said, generally they have a little bit more of a statistical bias to the downside, but that I've seen plenty of ascending wedges break to the upside. If you're trading within this wedge, you're really just kind of guessing. Price action traders and breakout traders are going to wait to see which way the price breaks, down or up. There's no, we're not trying to predict anything. We're just trying to get an edge in the market by identifying these areas and essentially taking action when, these levels break. Now on the weekly chart, you can see here that we are kind of holding this longer term support zone, going all the way back to 2015. We've been looking at this potential support zone for quite a while. And at this point, we can probably call it support because it's held multiple weeks in a row here. But still, we have this ascending wedge that we have to kind of get an idea of where this is going to break, and then we can go from there. So all in all, Bitcoin kind of right in line with the broad markets at this point. Now going into some individual names, we'll start with Tesla here. Tesla, just a huge mover today, almost 5%. And I say today on Friday, this is when I do these videos. Kind of a bull flag here. If you want to call it a cup and handle, go for it. You can have a bull flag within a cup and handle. That's kind of almost exactly what a cup and handle is. But you can see here, this is your kind of previous resistance from back in May. It also acted as support here back in April. So naturally, that's going to be a level to watch above. And that's anywhere from around 955 up to around 975. So definitely a nice bull flag breakout here on the daily. And then on the weekly, you can see here that we just got this huge symmetrical triangle here. And you can see that we are starting to move towards the resistance zone above. Let me do that wick to wick a little better. So essentially what we're doing is we're connecting. Oh, that's why. Oops, 1 second. So we're connecting this wick to. Oh, I don't know why that messed up. All right. So what we're doing here is you're taking this wick and you're connecting it to this wick. It's not going to be perfect. That's why we use a zone. Notice that this wick is a little lower than this wick. It's still, the zone is just capturing the price action. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different times. And these are weekly candles that we've tested this area. So moving forward, if we continue up, that $1,000 mark on the stock price is not only a psychological level, but it is a potential kind of symmetrical triangle resistance zone above for Tesla. But all in all, very strong price action for Tesla going into the week ahead. NVIDIA, you do have kind of a symmetrical triangle here as well. Really strong day for NVIDIA as well, almost up 4.5%. And same thing here. You can start looking at the gaps above, right? So you've got the gap detector, that will automatically capture these gaps for you. So I don't have to go and squint and see, okay, is that really a gap? Is it not? This will automatically highlight these gaps for you. So we do have a gap above that fills around 230. We have another gap above that fills around 258. So all in all, definitely some gaps above. You do have that one gap below here, around 158 or so, but you do have more gaps to the upside at this point. Now, on the weekly chart, I guess some people could call this a bearish pennant 100%. You've got your flat. You kind of have your flag down. This is just your big move to the downside. Now you're consolidating within kind of this symmetrical triangle pennant. And, we could easily break down through here. But just based on what the overall markets are looking like, if the Qs can really continue to break out that channel, I don't see NVIDIA not following with it. So just keep in mind the gaps above and the gaps below. And then if we do continue higher, you've got your I called it a swing high, but once again, it's just all-time highs here. I actually have a little button here that is automatically created. So I just click here and it's swing high. So if you are trying to kind of save annotations so you don't have to keep creating the annotations, you can do that here. So all you have to do is right click, go to properties, go to custom annotations, and you can save it as a custom annotation. So if you want to have gaps above on your chart and just easily like have that already in the same color and the same exact words, gaps above, you can save that as a custom annotation, change the color, all that. And you can just continually just go down and click on it so you don't have to keep, typing that out. So that's kind of why I had swing high there. It's actually just the all-time high VWAP zone. And you can see here, that's quite a ways away, 220 all the way up to around 240. So if this does start taking off, there's a lot of room to the upside. And once again, we look at where this started from. This thing bottomed out at almost negative 60% from the all-time highs to the lows that we saw in July. So all in all, it does seem like the market is priced in a lot of this bad news or rate hikes that we're possibly going to see in the future. So NVIDIA, once again, a pretty strong candle there on the weekly chart, closing near the high of the week. NEO is the next one. This thing is one that we went over a couple times over the last couple weeks or months, actually, at this point. And you can see here that we are continuing to hold this swing low VWAP zone. You can see here that we have this wick from Thursday. So anytime we have a wick like this, I want to see, what was going on inside that wick. And you'll see here that if you look at the raindrop, you have quite a bit of volume profile within that wick. So that tells me, there was some very aggressive buyers, essentially absorbing all of the supply that was being dumped on the market when the move occurred. And then as those buyers were done buying, the price is able to drop, not necessarily because sellers are coming in, but just because those buyers are done aggressively buying. And this is kind of where supply and demand curves come in, and just being able to understand, how that's possible. And I do have a couple posts on that in my account, personal account that I've posted, kind of highlighting how this is possible. So all in all, I think it's a pretty strong look here. As long as we hold the swing low VWAP zone, you start breaking below that, and the bull thesis is essentially invalidated. So at this point, we're holding above it. Decent weekly candle here as well. You can see we kind of have this symmetrical triangle here as well. A nice bounce off of this area. If we do move up, we do have this resistance zone above around 2350 all the way up to around 24. And once again, just turn on the gap detector and you'll see that we do have a gap above. I'm not sure why the gap detector is not showing that, but we can easily show it right here. That's your gap. So the gap fills right around 26 all the way up to around 27, 25. Moving on, next we have PayPal. PayPal has been one that's just been absolutely destroyed the last literally year or more. And what's interesting is if you're using the earnings gap down from February, you'll see here that we have this VWAP zone, pretty much the volume weighted average price after that earnings gap down. You can see that we've held this area as resistance multiple times back in March, and now we're moving up to it after gapping up through earnings in early August, and now we're kind of still trying to get through this area. So if we can break above this zone, that's a really strong kind of just overall indicator that we could continue to kind of turn things around here. Now, all you need to do is really just turn on some moving averages. So you've got the SMA 200 still declining. You've got the SMA 20 that's moving up. If you want to throw on the 50-day moving average, you can see that's finally starting to curl up as well. So definitely trend is starting to change a little bit here, and we will definitely kind of see where things go from here. And then on the weekly chart, you almost have like a V bottom here. But if you look here, if you want to be kind of forward looking, potentially some type of inverse head and shoulders forming here. So, these types of bottoms take a while, and it wouldn't be shocking to see this type of formation occur. We'll see how that, plays out. But all in all, a pretty sharp move to the upside after bottoming back in late June and early July. Next one that we will look at is Apple. This has definitely been leading the market, and we've talked about this on the last couple of videos. I mean, look at the price action pretty much since mid-June, straight up. I mean, literally since mid-June, this thing is up 33%. I mean, that is crazy. So on the daily chart, I don't really have a lot to look at. I mean, this is just where you pull the gaps out. There's a gap above. There's a couple gaps below. Last time we had a big move like this, and I'll highlight it here, and this is actually a much bigger move. we had the same type of move to the downside. So definitely not saying we're out of the woods here yet, especially based on just how big of a move we've had on Apple. We have the gap above, so that would definitely be an area where price may find some resistance if it fills. But then you want to turn to the weekly chart. So you'll see here we've kind of got this broadening formation as well, this broadening wedge. And you'll see here that we are nearing the resistance zone on the weekly chart for Apple. So this is kind of a make or break area. Notice if we moved up a little more, that would almost fill the gap perfectly right around 173, 174. So going into next week, this is the chart you want to keep an eye on. Are we going to break above and close above this resistance zone, or are we not? So that's the main thing that you want to keep an eye on Apple. With Apple leading the market, definitely continue to watch Apple possibly leading the market if we do reverse as well. And yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. One, getting a second perspective in the markets going into the week ahead. Two, just seeing how TrendSpider can definitely help you in identifying these levels, creating your own technical analysis, automatically looking at gaps, that type of thing. These are all things that are created to make that whole process of doing analysis in the markets more efficient. We do have that 7-day free trial if you want to give it a shot. And remember, if you do like these videos, please like and subscribe. And we really appreciate everybody who's a customer, as well as those that just watch these videos for another perspective in the markets. Everybody have a great weekend, and thanks for watching.